Michael, if it turns out that Ghislaine Maxwell does have compromising material on the president, what is the MAGA base reaction?
Violent. That's going to be a major issue.
I'm Joanna, Chief Content Officer of The Daily Beast. You are, I hope, driving your car, working out at the gym, or possibly, like the president, playing golf to this Daily Beast podcast. If you've enjoyed it, share it with a friend, share it with your entire contacts book, share it with your own little black book, just like Jeffrey Epstein. But leave us a comment on YouTube so we know what you think and we can respond to what you think. And we do listen to your comments and read your comments. And actually, I wanted to address one, which is a very good one that several people called us out for talking about Jeffrey Epstein's victims as young women or underage women when, of course, they were schoolgirls. So good call out. We did it largely just to avoid repeating the same word, but very good call out. There is a big difference between young women and schoolgirls. And of course, an extraordinary week. I know I overused the word extraordinary, and how can one not in the era of Donald Trump, as new norms are broken every single day. But this week we see the number 2 in the Justice Department, Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's former personal lawyer, hot-footing it down to the Tallahassee court where he talked to Ghislaine Maxwell, sentenced for 20 years for sex trafficking, young girls, to talk to her about what she knows, as this story will not leave the president alone. His relationship, of course, with Jeffrey Epstein. Who better to get into it with, of course, than Michael Wolff, the author of 4 books on Donald Trump, and importantly, also 2 books on Rupert Murdoch, because this week Rupert Murdoch is a player because his newspaper, the Wall Street Journal, has been breaking story after story in this remarkable scandal. So, no more time to waste. Michael, let's get into it. Okay, Michael Wolff, very good to be back with you, sir. You are the man for the moment. You've been everywhere. I felt slightly cheated on while I was away because I kept seeing you in other podcasts.
That's what happens when you go away.
Well, I'm back, so no more, please. But, you know, what are you hearing? What are you hearing from your sources in the White House?
I mean, it's full panic. I think people are genuinely inside the White House, genuinely concerned about where we are. I mean, I think they're confused about it because they don't know. It's not as if Donald Trump sits down and says, this is our exposure. He says he just denies, which is actually, they call me to find out what I know.
So have any of them read the Epstein files? I mean, the documents that Pam Bondi told the president that he was in?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm not actually sure that files in that coherent sense actually exist. And I think there are probably, if you defined what this is, it's pretty disparate.
So it's it's intelligence. It's Epstein intelligence, and he crops up all the time in it because, as you keep pointing out, he was an incredibly close friend of Jeffrey Epstein's for many, many years.
Yeah, and I think this idea of the Epstein files is almost it may be kind of metaphoric. There are things that the government knows about Jeffrey Epstein. Is it gathered in one place? Is it accessible? Is it? I mean, for one of the things that would be particularly revelatory are the emails. Is that included? Well, we don't know.
Wait a minute, which emails?
Well, the email. They go into Epstein's house. They take his computer and his hard drives. Well, he has emails on there. Theoretically, I mean, how far back do your emails go? I'm sure that,
but
all
Donald
this.
Trump famously doesn't email, so he wouldn't be expected to have emails from the president on there.
No, but he's going to have emails from Steve Bannon on there, for instance, and many others. And he's going to be on, Epstein is going to be on the emails talking to other people. And Epstein spent a lot of time talking to people around Donald Trump. I mean, so just as for instance, Tom Barrack, who was a very close friend of Trump's, a senior-most advisor during the first administration, who is now the ambassador. I should have this at my fingertips, but I do not. The ambassador to somewhere, and who was actually indicted at one point.
I'm looking it up as you speak.
Indicted for various things having to do with his involvement with Trump, but a very close friend of Jeffrey Epstein's. I knew Jeffrey Epstein introduced me to Tom Barrack during the first administration. But anyway, that's just one example of the kinds of people, of the kind of person Epstein would have been talking about Trump on a pretty constant basis.
Okay, so we know that inside the White House, they're completely panicked about how to handle this. This is totally riled up the MAGA base. It's not going away. The attempt to deflect by using Tulsi Gabbard to talk about Barack Obama hasn't worked. We're recording this on Friday lunchtime. Earlier this morning, the president, on his way to Scotland, said he had the power to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell, but he hadn't yet thought about it. And
let me interrupt, though.
Well, hold on.
Yes.
But he also said that people should look at the former president of Harvard, Larry Summers, and other big private equity people who lived with Jeffrey Epstein, which Donald Trump certainly didn't do.
Well, I don't know. I think it's more Trump and Epstein spent significantly more time in proximity. I mean, so that's one of the things.
I wasn't meaning that they didn't live together. I was meaning Trump said that. Trump said he didn't live with Epstein.
Yes, but in the general sense, I mean, this is where MAGA has been hoisted to, which is to say, yeah, there are a lot of people. I mean, a formidable and eye-popping list of people who were around Jeffrey Epstein. Absolutely, and this is absolutely true, but that hardly negates the fact that the person who spent the most time with Jeffrey Epstein, more than a decade of constant contact, was Donald Trump. So this is. I mean, that deflection. Look over there. Larry Summers is going to be difficult, and I think it just kind of brings it actually back to the fact that yes, these guys spent time with them, and a lot of these people have their reputations and careers have been damaged because of it. But no one has spent as much time as Trump. I was talking to someone, a White House person, last night, and again, very, very worried. And it was a telling thing that they said. This person said, there's always been a kind of, fear of, Trump's, what he called Trump's bad boy years. But then he said, but now the fear is that those bad boy years may have been far badder than we really appreciate, and that they may be too bad for the MAGA people to tolerate.
So that's absolutely fascinating. I mean, not unlike actually P. Diddy with his bad boy records, and of course the freak-offs turned out to be much more violent than anybody expected. So I've been dying to talk to you about the birthday letter that Donald Trump apparently wrote for Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday, and this idea that they shared a wonderful secret. What do you think he's referring to?
I think that he is referring to the girlfriend that they shared at that point in time, 92, 93. So there was a woman, and as far as I know, she's not underage, but who they literally shared, who literally went back and forth between these two guys.
And she went back and forth in the same bed with the two of them? Was it a threesome, or she was dating both of them separately?
I don't know the mechanics. I know that during the same period, and they openly, this wasn't hidden from either one, they openly shared this particular woman, that she went out with both of them at the same time, and they both understood this.
So the Wall Street Journal's been doing some superb reporting on this, and obviously Trump is now suing the Wall Street Journal and taking on his old friend Rupert Murdoch. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think within the White House, I know some background here. Within the White House, they regard this, and briefly to recap, this is the Wall Street Journal published a letter that Donald Trump wrote to Jeffrey Epstein on the occasion of his 50th birthday in 1993. Trump, by the way, denies that he ever saw this letter, and it certainly was not his letter, although his signature seems pretty clearly to be Donald Trump, and it would have been completely in character for him to write his best friend this birthday greeting. At any rate, and this was solicited from Donald Trump. There were many others who wrote letters too, but solicited from Donald Trump by Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yes, as Trump himself has pointed out, Bill Clinton also wrote a letter.
The view within the White House is that this letter came to the Wall Street Journal via the Maxwell side, the Maxwell family lawyers. Ghislaine Maxwell's brother has been very out front in defending his sister, who was in jail for 20 years.
Right. So this is Ian Maxwell, who's a well-known figure in the London scene.
Exactly. So they inside the White House, they believe this came from the Maxwell side, and they interpret this as a, quote, shot across the bow, which is to say that Ghislaine Maxwell, who at this point in her life has nothing to lose, and I am sure seeking leverage in any way she possibly can, that this is an announcement, a threat, an announcement that she has damaging material on Donald Trump. Hence, a full-scale panic. The number 2 in the Justice Department, Todd Blanche, immediately scheduled a meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell, which is totally exceptional that the number 2 in the Justice Department would schedule a meeting with a convicted felon, one convicted for no less for sexual offenses.
For sex trafficking girls, underage girls.
Yes, but anyway, so he rushed down to meet with her. Again, this is extraordinary. The number 2 in the Justice Department. Let's
just remind people that Todd Blanche was Donald Trump's lawyer during the Stormy Daniels trial.
Yes, he was Donald Trump's personal lawyer. He represents Donald Trump.
But Donald Trump's had lots of lawyers. It seems doubly ironic, because he's always firing them, that this would be the lawyer from the Stormy Daniels trial, which Donald Trump lost. Donald Trump's relationship with his lawyers is always a Trump subtext, and and I did a lot of reporting on this, and this is in my book, All or Nothing, the relationship he has with especially with these lawyers who were with him during the Stormy Daniels trial, but during all of his legal problems during the campaign. This includes Emil Bove, or Bove, who's now a significant holds a significant position in the Justice Department, and who is now up for a seat on a significant appeals court, and many people say is being prepped to go on to the Supreme Court. Alina Habba in New Jersey, and she's the federal prosecutor there, who can't get confirmed by the Senate, an appellate court there has refused to appoint, to extend her temporary appointment, and
and appointed someone else who the Justice Department has now fired. But at any rate, one of the things that goes on with these lawyers, these are his personal lawyers, and he has crucified them all. I can't describe his treatment of these people, and effectively what he does is he breaks them. I mean, they can't ever have had a professional instance in their life in which is so debasing. And I think what happens is that having done this, then they're broken. They understand that they have only one role in life, and that is to serve Donald Trump.
So describe the debasing behavior that he does. You do write about how he screams certainly at Alina Harper.
It's screaming, in vilifying them. You're a piece of shit. You're I never saw somebody so incompetent. There's one of the lawyers, he just went after, and in the middle of they come out of the courtroom, and the guy has like a red spot on his head, whether it's a dermatological issue or whether it's just anxiety.
Right, it's a flare-up of anxiety, it's a physical manifestation.
And Trump looks at it and says, "What's that?"
Right.
And he says, "That's not a good look. Get rid of it." There's one guy, in the break room, there's only one bathroom. This is a courthouse. This is a criminal court. There's only one bathroom in there. And one of these lawyers, God knows, you might say, what was he thinking? Uses the bathroom. He's banished. Get him out of here. He's used my bathroom. Get him out of here. So it's just everybody is treated. He doesn't remember any of their names. You lawyer, and then again, and it is. I mean, there was one guy. And he goes on at length. You can't talk. What's the problem with you? You can't talk. Why can't you talk? You know what you sound like? And then he makes fun. He does that imitation that makes everybody like, he goes like, oh.
So he's a horrible person to work for. Nevertheless, if you're Todd Blanche, you can't ever have thought that you would end up as the number 2 in the Justice Department.
Right. And so you understand your job is, remember, the Justice Department of the United States has always been at least in the modern era, post-Watergate, has protected its independence. Yes, we are part of the executive branch, but no, we are not under the direct control of the executive branch. And Trump has said, basically, that's bullshit. You're under my direct control. In fact, you are my lawyers. Right. You do not represent the United States of America. You represent me. And that's obviously true for Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, who doesn't know, caught in the headlights on this thing. Yes, we're going to release the Epstein files. Oh, no, sorry. No, we're not releasing them. So it's a, again, we're back to one of those moments, which is a fundamental change in the nature of the government and how the government works. And right now, it is full out. We are there to protect Donald Trump. We are, and this is the interesting thing. The Justice Department at various points, Nixon especially, has tried to use the Justice Department to further a cover-up, and that was really rather precisely what Watergate was about.
Right, it's never the crime, it's the cover-up.
Nixon did that in the dead of night. This is not in the dead of night. This is incredibly out front. There's no pretense otherwise. Protect the president.
So what do you think Donald Trump thought or said when Pam Bondi told him he was in the Epstein so-called files?
Well, I'm not sure what what was told, and I rather think that that they are now putting this out there as let's test the waters, let's do a little preparation of the ground here, because this could be pretty bad. Or conversely, she told him, he said, like what? And she, and I can't imagine this conversation, because you cannot bring Donald Trump bad news. You cannot. But let's assume that she might have said something, and he said, oh yeah, shut this down, forget about it.
Well, and Elon then immediately put it out.
Yeah, no. Precisely. So I mean, I don't see how you can shut this down. This is out there, and that's what he's dealing with right now. This is the thing, and let's remember, this has always been on the, a storm on the horizon. Steve Bannon meets Jeffrey Epstein for the first time, and the first thing he says is, you were the only person I was afraid of during the campaign, the 2016 campaign.
Right.
I go to Mar-a-Lago to interview Trump, and I tell aides that one of the topics I'd like to discuss is Epstein. They said, if you bring that up, the interview will end there and then.
Wow. So Todd Blanche flees down to Tallahassee to the courtroom to talk to Ghislaine Maxwell. Do we have any sense of what he said? We know the questioning went on. He's back at it again today. Her lawyer, David Marcus, who is a friend of Todd Blanche, came out and said that Ghislaine miraculously answered every question honestly and didn't plead the fifth in any way. What are your thoughts about what's going on there?
I would imagine that she is outlining what she has on the President of the United States, and they are evaluating how damaging that is and evaluating how credible what she has to say is. So they're negotiating. She is now putting her goods on the table, and then they'll have to respond. What are the and so we go into the cover-up territory. What are the inducements they might offer to keep her quiet? In some.
Right. So she says she's got information that she saw the president with Jeffrey Epstein. Let's just sort of game this out. She's seen President Trump with Jeffrey Epstein in a compromising position, let's just say. And she wants either a reduction in her sentence or she wants a full pardon. I'm just sort of fascinated to think about what Todd Blanche has to play with there.
Well, I think, the first is, what do you got? Is this damaging?
Well, if you're Ghislaine Maxwell, and as you said earlier, she's got nothing to lose, why wouldn't you just say you've got the goods? I mean, who's going to know?
They're going to say, what evidence do you have? Remember, this is Donald Trump. If Ghislaine Maxwell comes out and says, he did this, he did that, and he says, I didn't. This is a lie. Remember, denial is a very powerful tool for Donald Trump, but does she have things that cannot be denied? I mean, he
left the courtroom with a big box of files yesterday. I mean, who knows what was in it?
Well, who knows? Who knows what's in that? So it's that, and remember his level of denial. This letter, the letter that the Journal published is certainly convincing. Right time, right place, right characters.
Well, and it stands to reason that someone would have a copy of it.
And plus, the Journal is publishing it. The Journal doesn't publish things that it hasn't taken a fairly close look at, and especially understanding that Trump might well come after them. So, but even in that case, what did Donald Trump say? Nothing to do with me. This wasn't me at all. I don't know where this came from. So, therefore, they'll look at what Ghislaine has and say, well, we can just deny that, and who you're going to believe, a convicted felon or the president of the United States. Or they're going to look at what she says and says, oh my God, this is really going to be hard to get out from under.
Right, and he can deny it, but there are pictures. I mean, there's lots of pictures of him with Epstein. We know they were really
well. We already know that, so
right.
that's not the issue. The issue is, what does she have that goes beyond that?
Michael, if it turns out that Ghislaine Maxwell does have compromising material on the president, and Todd Blanche advises Donald Trump to give her a pardon or commute her sentence in some way, what do you think what is the MAGA base reaction?
Violent. That's going to be a major issue. It's going to be a major issue. The choice that he will have to make is between protecting himself and dealing with the base. Somehow he's got to bring those two together. He's got to get the base to recognize that without him there is no MAGA. But this is a really complicated trick. Can he pull that off? I'm not sure.
And where is J.D. Vance in all this?
Hiding.
Hiding.
J.D. Vance for his own political future, cannot lose the MAGA base, but for his own political future, he cannot lose Donald Trump. Go figure.
And Mike Johnson, I suddenly saw Mike Johnson as a potential candidate today when he said, well, we have to let this play out. We need to understand it. These are heinous crimes. I suddenly thought, oh, Mike Johnson is going to run too.
Well, I think everybody's going to run. This is, there is going to be no Donald Trump. So for the first time in 10 years, more than 10 years, it's going to be a wide open Republican opportunity. So everybody is going to be in.
Right. And for Rupert Murdoch, who seems, the Wall Street Journal, and conflict of interest alert here, Emma Tucker, who's the executive editor of the Wall Street Journal, is a close personal friend of mine. She's been doing a stellar job at the Wall Street Journal. But what do you think of Trump's very aggressive lawsuit against them? He's suing them for libel. They've banned them.
Well, he sues everybody. He sued the New York Times and a number of times.
Of course, and he's just settled with ABC and he settled with Paramount. But
we'll draw a distinction though, because it's important. It's important here. This is Donald Trump's playbook. You sue, and litigation for Donald Trump is not necessarily about winning in court. It's about a headline. It's about staking his virtue, moral claims. I am going to sue. He sued all his life. That's what he does. The fact that these lawsuits against media organizations by Donald Trump are routinely tossed doesn't make any difference. Because they have two effects. They get the headline, I'm a victim, I'm wounded, and they send a chill to other organizations. In the last number of months, he's settled with two major media organizations, ABC and CBS. These were specious lawsuits that would have been dismissed if these organizations had pursued them. Instead, they settled. They settled because their parent companies had other interests before the government. They said this was a kind of, let's say it was a kind of bribe. And in fact, the settlements, $15 million in one case, $16 million in another case, goes to Donald Trump, not to the government of the United States. Now, Rupert Murdoch, who has been doing this for more than 70 years, does not settle these kinds of lawsuits, especially specious ones that he is going to win. And so I would say the purpose is for, as I said, it's to make a headline and to send a chill to other media organizations. But in Donald Trump's inimitable fashion, he recognizes a weakness here, and he has been going around saying to people, Rupert, who is 94, is going to die any minute, and his son is a weakling. His son is Lachlan Murdoch, who will take over the organization upon his father's death, and is, in any interpretation, a weakling. Would Lachlan Murdoch settle with Donald Trump? Yeah, probably immediately.
So this is a bet by Donald Trump that Rupert Murdoch will die before any kind of discovery would take place.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's win-win for him anyway. He gets the headline, gets to send the chill, even if Rupert Murdoch, many people have anticipated Rupert Murdoch's death for many years, and yet he goes on, and he may well go on long enough for this suit to be dismissed, which would happen in the next number of months, probably. But cream on top, if he dies, Lachlan might well settle, and Donald would collect.
Well, we should certainly do another episode on Donald Trump and Rupert Murdoch's relationship. But I just want to revisit one final point before we eventually meet again very soon, I hope next week, to figure out what on earth the conversation has been with Todd Blanche and Ghislaine Maxwell. But the Tulsi Gabbard of all this too, the sudden creation or the sort of revisiting of the Russia story and the implicating of President Obama, and then Obama unusually reacting to it.
Well, Tulsi Gabbard he has treated her like he has treated his lawyers. I mean, he's really pushed her out. She did something that he didn't like. She was immediately pushed out. Everybody in the administration.
Well, was that over the Iran,
yes,
the Iranian affair?
Yes.
Right. So she said they didn't have the capabilities to make nuclear weapons.
Exactly.
And then she immediately had to backtrack on it. Do you remember that 3 weeks ago? Right.
So everybody has told her, you're toast, you're finished. You might as well just go home. And people have blanked her. I mean, I've heard about this. Tulsi, get it.
Don't be anywhere near her.
Yeah,
she's
don't
losing.
get in a photo with her.
Sell shares in Tulsi Gabbard.
And she's been desperate. This has been, Tulsi Gabbard, basically has not been able to get arrested in public life for many years, and then she's finally, sucked up to Trump. I mean, really sucked up. Got this job, and now 7 months in, it was imperiled. So what did she do? I mean, she's smart enough to know what she had to do. She had to give Trump a headline, even if it was entirely ridiculous, and she's going to, send Barack Obama to jail. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's all made up. She made it up. It's a concoction, but it saves her skin.
Well, and interestingly, it actually provoked Barack Obama's team to come out with a statement and just say this is ridiculous distraction from actually what's going on.
Right. Which seems
to have killed the story. I mean, sometimes they put out nonsense and it holds up the news agenda for a bit, but this one seemed to come and go very quickly. Yeah, no, I mean,
it's just,
I can't
what
even
can
believe
you say?
We were talking about Iran, what was it, 3 or 4 weeks ago. I'd just come back from another trip. It was all about Iran. It's just extraordinary how the news cycle moves on. But on this particular story, on the Jeffrey Epstein story, it is stuck. And the MAGA base will not let it go.
The MAGA base will not let it go. Obviously, the mainstream media has picked it up, which is totally, I mean, again, a shock. Where have they been? And I think it is worth reminding people that this story of Donald Trump's close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, the Daily Beast, and I got together a week before the election and released tapes which had Jeffrey Epstein saying very specifically Donald Trump was his best friend for over a decade. And how did the media respond? Crickets.
Well, people can go back and find those stories actually on our website.
So, it has finally broken through, I think. And the media, which has been incredibly confused about this story, very reluctant, not wanting to deal with it, I think for a whole variety of reasons, which we can at some future point discuss in detail, because I think it's interesting. But they're forced into it now. I mean, it's front and center. It is the story.
And weirdly, the MAGA basis conspiracy theory that Jeffrey Epstein was at the center of a global cabal of elite men on both sides of the aisle. Actually, for once, it's a conspiracy story which has a lot of truth in it.
Well, all conspiracy theories, well, maybe not Pizzagate.
I was going to say Pizzagate, absolutely not.
Yeah, but many conspiracy theories have an element of truth in them, but in the conspiratorial telling, the emphasis is all wrong. The conclusions are all wrong, and I think that is also probably the case in the Epstein story. But it is true that enormous numbers of influential and powerful people were gravitated to Jeffrey Epstein, were attracted to Jeffrey Epstein, found his presence really compelling. But again, it is important to remember, which the MAGA people somehow overlooked, that the person who found him most compelling for the longest period of time, who was his true friend, not just a visitor, was Donald J. Trump,
with whom he shared a wonderful secret. So, Michael, the minute you find out what Ghislaine Maxwell and Todd Blanche's conversation is about, please come back and enlighten us. And obviously, we'll be watching Donald Trump's behaviour incredibly closely as he plays golf in Scotland, and we will expect you to come back and interpret what's going on inside Trump's head.
I will see you soon.
So many questions, not least what on earth can it be like to be Ghislaine Maxwell in that jail, trying to figure out what hope is there for you? And does she, as a lot of people are saying online, does she actually end up like her mentor and former lover and partner in crime, Jeffrey Epstein? Well, to stay on top of all developments, don't forget to subscribe to thedailybeast.com. Share this podcast with your friends. Share it with your contacts book. And keep us posted with comments on YouTube about what you think. And what are your conspiracies about this? What are the questions that you would be asking Michael Wolff, who really is the authority on this subject, bar none? Don't forget, be beast. And please join me in applauding our producers of this episode, Devon Rogerino, Anna von Urson, and our editor, Jessie Millward.